Good morning. Happy Sunday to you. How are you? I have just a little bit of time before I go into my outside job later on. Just wanted to kind of touch base with you this morning, and we're going to roast some tomatoes. Eventually my hair will go up on top of my head, but like I had said in my video yesterday, I'm trying to let it grow out, and I've been kind of working with different colors and shades and cutting it, and because I'm all about being presentable, having the image perceived correctly in the right light. I'm Kitryn Marie. I reside in St. Louis, Missouri. I'm an artist, writer, speaker, life and a business coach, teach a variety of art enrichment classes, personal development classes. Work in the restaurant industry. I've had my hand in food and beverage 32 years. I started out content creating, cooking in my kitchen. And today we're going to roast up some more tomatoes, and I'm going to show you my box of produce that I got from my favorite produce place in Webster Groves, Rogers, between Big Ben and Lockwood. $6 for this whole box. Now mind you, all of their produce they get in from farmers surrounding areas, so on and so forth. On the outside is everything that was just brought in. Prices are reasonable. But if you go into the inside and you look to see at the ripe or next to overripe, you can get all kinds of vegetables and fruits, squash, some zucchini, some eggplant. I have peppers of all kinds. I bought pears because sometime this week I'm going to make my brandy pear chicken. It's better than Marry Me chicken, I promise you. I just have to go to the Total Wines and More later on, make a little field trip, and get some really good brandy. I'll bring you along later on in the week when I do that. But I had all these tomatoes and all these other peppers from earlier on, and I thought, well, you know what, before I go into work, before I finish getting myself done, haven't turned my oven on yet because it is hot, and I will wait till I'm done with the video because I don't want to melt. And probably within the duration you will see what curls I have completely fall out of my hair. The curls never last, and I don't know why. Could be the curling iron I have is really, really old. Bought some darling fall dish towels at Ross. Went into there. I think probably later in the week I will go back and I will get a pumpkin blanket that I saw, that real plushy kind. It was like $12.99. I'm trying to treat myself a little bit. I'm not really, like I always say, I'm not a shopper, but in order to get me out of the house and to give me reasons to redecorate my house, I've been going to TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and Ross seems to have the best price, although Marshalls had 3 holiday, Thanksgiving dish towels for $12.99. I got 2 of these for $5.99. But let's get these tomatoes cut up because they're not going to get done themselves. I want to show you, though, this handy-dandy little gadget thing my kid got me for Christmas last year. It has a peeler on it that I just dropped. It's got dropping things all over the place. A grater. It's got a smaller grater. It's got a pizza cutter. It's got a bottle opener. It was like one of the handy little gadgets he got me last year. My kid's all about gadgets. But what I want to do is I want to get these tomatoes, and I want to talk to you this morning on why is it we know what we don't want, and it's easy to identify what we don't want versus what we do want. I'll give you a few seconds. Think about it. Why is that? You can say, I don't like that, But that seems to be what you bring into your life. You know, it takes, I think, more thought to really decipher what it is that you do want. And because there are so many choices and so many different options in this world, it's mind-boggling. It's overwhelming. You become consumed with what social media is saying to be your living standard. But what is it you want in your life, and why is it so difficult for you to have it, to obtain it? Way back, I had a horse. She passed away this June. She was 31 years old. Won't get into all the details on it, but it left a really bad feeling about it. Like I've said, I believe it did cause some kind of post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, mind you, there were other things that were going on in my world also. And I've had her for my exercise because I wanted to be able to move to the country. I wanted to be able to, I was so focused on, I was going to take all my arts and crafts, I was going to teach on my property, I was going to have a garden, get some chickens, do some roadside selling. That is what I have been, I can't tell you for how many years, hyper-focused on. I don't like where I live. I'm too close to the city. And, the city is fine if you like being in that eclectic type atmosphere. I do not. I like the quiet. I like the peaceful. I like country. I like land. I like lakes. I like to fish. I love animals. And someone had recently asked me if I thought I'd ever have a horse again. Under different circumstances, I would. Needless to say, I can't have one in my backyard here. If I lived completely out of the area and I knew my vet choices were going to be different, yes, very much so. Also, although the barn where I had her, the owners were fabulous. They were just wonderful. When I had lost my job and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, they worked with me tremendously. Sometimes, you may have your own experience, but sometimes women who have money, they act different. And women in any group can become very catty. And although I did very much have my favorites, and there were some that I loved to pick their brain and ask them questions and want to know about their lives and their kids and their husbands and their other pets and everything, there were some that they didn't like me. And that's okay, because I always say I'm one of those people, either you love me or you hate me. And in that particular situation, I was disliked immensely. But to answer the question, will I ever have another horse? Yes, in a different surrounding, a different situation, a different atmosphere, knowing I will have a different experience. I'm looking to see where all my trays are here. It's easy for me to say that is what I want, and because maybe financially I am not able to have that right now because I'm working on other things. Just because you don't have the money, sorry, my table's shaking. Just because you don't have the money to do something at the particular time that you were discussing it, talking about it, wishing upon it, that doesn't mean that you can't still want it. Now, depending on if you're single, if you're coupled up, if you're partnered up, You should never have to give up your dream or your goal because the other person that you are with cannot understand, and I'm going to see if I can do this while I'm talking to you. Sometimes peeling eggplants are difficult. I can do it over here, move my trash. But just because you have this goal and this dream, you are still entitled to talk about it. And you are not responsible for your spouse, your significant other, your partner, your other half, your husband, wife. You're not responsible for trying to make them understand what it is that you are trying to achieve. Because if they love you, and if they want to be with you, and they want to see the relationship succeed, there has to be a compromise. So, I'm always full of questions. What is the dream that you have, the goal that you were trying to get to, but your significant other can't see your way of trying to get to that part? It's not your job to convince them. It's your job to be true to yourself. It's your life. So, where's the deal breaker in the relationship if you are not working on the same goal? And you have one that is constantly talking about what they don't want because they don't know what they do want. They're caught up in their job, they're caught up in their family dynamics, they're caught up in their health, they're caught up in who they associate with, they're caught up in their work environment. I'm going to end up cutting myself here. But you stay true to who you are, and you stay true to your dream. And just because it isn't feasible for somebody else who is watching on the outside, they don't get to criticize what you're working on or what you're trying to manifest, work on, build. I would say I'm creating an empire. I'm trying to create a life that I don't need to escape from. Too many people, the all or nothing is, they work, they do their job, they come home, and there's nothing left of them, and they are nothing but a shell. And they're so angry with life and the choice that they made where they are in their job, they become very overwhelmed. And it is an all or nothing situation, are the ones that say, well, this is what you signed up for. This is what you signed on for. You knew this was how I was when we got involved. Is that enough? Are you supposed to give up who you are or what you want because somebody doesn't want to get out of that all or nothing? Also, when it comes to your relationships and when it comes to love, I'm single. Was with somebody for 6 years. I always say jokingly it was 10 years, but he was my friend way before we got involved. I'm putting these all on the tray. But when you get involved with somebody, I kind of lost my train of thought. When you get involved with somebody and in the beginning you talk about what you would like to have, when does it become the breaking point that you're not getting what you originally talked about? And besides the honeymoon phase, all the hopes and dreams and manipulations and build-up of yes, we will do this. Yes, we can do this. Yes, we will go there. Yes, we will build on. Yes, we will. Yes, yes, yes. Till you realize your person never really wanted what you wanted. They just wanted to go along with the program at that time because it was what you wanted to hear. And then what does that do somewhere down the line when you realize, okay, you're not progressing, you're not growing, and all of a sudden you are deciphering what you don't want because you no longer are working on what you do want. Does it make sense? Or, here's my other question, how badly programmed are you or your person where they don't know how to do anything else, and because that program has brainwashed them into thinking there's only one way to do something, that they can't see outside of the possibility of something more. I teach that a lot in my life coaching class, putting a vision board together. We know what we typically don't want in our life. It's the building upon what can we do together to make this work so we can get to that outside goal and get you out of the only way that you know how to think. Also, let's briefly talk about your significant other, person, partner. How was he raised? And what was the emotional integrity his, her, father had on them? And can they articulate, let me say it again, can they articulate what isn't working in their life so that way they're not taking it out on you? If you are a baby boomer, a later baby boomer, and you have early baby boomer parents, men were not supposed to have emotions. Women had roles. They didn't have that hands-on with their kids. They relied very much on either their mother or their wife. And then you have siblings, and that's just a baby boomer thing. You have an older sibling, you have a middle sibling, you have a baby sibling. If you are, Catholic, you've got a million kids. Somewhere in that line, that child is going to be neglected because the mother is so overwhelmed with kids, she's relying on that one child to take care of the other kids. Then, how does that play into your person now being an adult, now being a product of environment, stuck in a situation because it's all or nothing, and they can't get out of it because they don't know how? And they keep saying, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this, but they are doing nothing to alter what they can do to like something. Talk about that a lot in my vision board class. I feel like I should have something else on this tray. I'm going to try to cut up one more tomato and put on here. I had so many red tomatoes, so many. But since I've been making my own sauce, this was just the easiest way to do it. So none of the tomatoes would go to waste. But I think about that all the time. Here I am. I'm in a job that I like in the restaurant industry. I like it. Am I attached to it? No. If something different, better would come along, I would probably leave. But that is just me. I go where the opportunity is. I don't stay stuck in something just for a paycheck. And when I signed on for that job, I desperately needed a job because the place where I was at before, which I would have stayed forever, closed the doors. And then when do you realize, like I said, I like where I work, I love the people I work with, they tolerate me really well, but when do you decide you don't fit in where you're working because, one, you're too intelligent, two, it's really not your field, three, it's a different breed of individuals, and so on and so forth, etc. But when do you decide you really don't fit in and they're just tolerating you because you are a warm body at a desk, on the floor, in the plant, out in the field? When do you decide this is not cutting it and I need to move on? And then knowing, again, it's not what you like, but you're staying. How is that impacting your partner, your person, your spouse? Relationships aren't easy. They're not. Do I see myself in one? At some point, maybe. I have shorts on under here. That's what all this bulkiness is. Like I said, my person and I were together for 6 years. He didn't want what I wanted in the end. He didn't want to veer out of his badly programmed life. It was easy for him to be angry all the time. It was easy for him to be codependent and not pay attention to the things that he needed to do for himself, where he was hyper-focused on what my needs were, which was greatly appreciated. I wanted for nothing. And, that's a nice feeling when you say, hey, I like this, and then it shows up, But when you're in that relationship, especially that committed relationship, is your partner deciding how they like themselves and the things that they want for themselves, to have a better image, to be at a better job, for a higher paycheck, for a more emotionally connected relationship, on the same page, wanting the same things, working on the same goal for the rest of your life? Or the flip side of all of that, you've been sold a bill of goods, you've been made a bunch of promises, and the promises are becoming very negated because that person was just needing or using you to get what they wanted because they couldn't be alone. And now that they have somebody, they've gotten what they've wanted from you, out of you, and you see them just emotionally backtracking. You see them not connected to the relationship at all. My book that I wrote, When He Had Her. His whole MO is he's constantly looking for new supply. He's bored. Once he gets what he needs or wants from the relationship, he has a wandering eye, and he's always looking for something else to feed that addiction, that constant chase, that constant high. And here, the person character, the other person character in the book, she gives up everything. Lock, stock, barrel, sells everything to move in with him. And because he constantly has always had somebody feeding him emotionally, spiritually, financially, mentally, and now he had taken everything from this person, and she was completely depleted, and she starts to see the pattern. Can you relate with that? How many women do you know who become so entangled in a man's life, and you can reverse the role, and once they get what they need, they're discarded, they're pushed away. They don't have that emotional connectedness. They don't have the maturity when it comes to what a morally sound relationship is. Okay, this is the one tray. So what I've been doing, and I'm like talking about life coaching things and not even talking about this, but these were things on my mind this morning. I will roast all this stuff up, and then it goes into a blender, and then it goes into a jar, I wish I had more of these jars. Somewhere this week I will go get some more canning jars, but I always save my jars. I don't know. I'm a product of some environment that lived through the Depression, and in my family growing up, we saved everything. I even saved tin foil. But anyway, so back to my book. When he had her, when she finally recognizes the patterns and what her current role is in this person's life, his life is all falling apart, and she's like scrambling because now she has nothing because she banked it all on him. But in true life, how many women do you know that do that? I own my house here. I have struggled to keep it on and off in the 20 years. The economy has not been kind nor fair. Always having my hand in food and beverage, my income has always fluctuated. This house is a shoebox. I did expect, and it's progression, it's growing, it's evolving. I did expect my person to say, okay, we've been doing this long enough, it's time to get us in one house because this one is not big enough. And he was living in an apartment. And I'm not going back to living in an apartment, I'm not going back to living in the city. I'm trying to get out of where I am. And I suppose, too, when you have a job, you have a craft. You do not have to stay at that job you are at if you are unhappy, if it's making you sick, if it's making you unhealthy, if it's making you crabby. But you have to have that light go off over your head stating and saying very loudly, hey, I'm, a marketable good. I'm a commodity that I can take my craft and I can go elsewhere, anywhere. And then it comes back to, you're with your person, your partner, your spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife. If you can see somebody is miserable and you keep hearing what they don't like, it is then up to you, the other person, to start throwing out ideas based on what you believe you like. And like that one song says, we all know what love isn't, but yet we have a hard time finding what love is. Things on my mind, things I talk about in my life coaching class. Don't have all the answers, don't want to have all the answers. But it's in the relationship, you can only take so much. You become so overwhelmed with the anger. You become so overwhelmed with the all or the nothing when, all that inside still needs to be discussed. Emotions need to be articulated like grown-ups. When your person starts not coming home and they are, deferring to outside activities without you in environments that are not good for them, feeding them more into depression, anxiety, addiction. It takes a toll on the other person who's just kind of waiting to see, okay, does the shoe drop, does the bottom fall out, or does the light bulb go off over their head where they understand there's so much more than what they are used to. There is always more than one way to do something. So I hope I made sense today. I've got a lot of vegetables here to cut up and roast before I go into work. But I think I can get it done. But I am Kitryn Marie, an artist, writer, speaker, life and business coach, published author. If you're interested, you get the book When He Had Her, available on Amazon. It will be available for Amazon Prime here October this week, I believe. But for today, for tomorrow, be happy, be blessed, be thankful for everything. Fate turns on a dime. It is up to you to decide what side of that coin you want to be on. If you have to write a list, write on your list what you don't want, what you don't like, but then really start focusing on what you do want, what you do like, and what changes you are willing to make with your person, partner, spouse, other half, significant other, husband, wife, that's going to make the two of you come together so you can evolve and grow, have progression, and live a very happy life. If you're interested in taking my life coaching class, putting a vision board together, reach out, kitrynmarie@gmail.com. Take care, and I'll see you real soon. Stay tuned for pictures later on all this sauce that I'll be making. Take care. See you soon. Bye.